This semester I found a problem which I think most teachers can relate to. You plan your lessons with the hope that students want to participate in class, but well, see for yourself. Okay, so now moving on to the exercises. Does anyone want to volunteer? Do you have a question? Anything? Anything at all? Something similar to this happened to me during my practicum during the last couple of months. Most of the time, teachers associate this problem with anxiety and motivational issues, but I wanted to tackle this problem using an aspect of learning that seems to be left to the side. My name is Vicente Reyes, and I'm going to present to you an action research proposal which aims to find a solution to this problem using differentiated instruction. And to keep everything organized, I divided this presentation into four main points: contextualization, theoretical framework, action plan, and a conclusion. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and let's talk about the context. I did a practicum as a pre-service English teacher in a private co-ed Lake Sciences and Humanities school in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. This school has made its priority to assist students and their families during this sanitary crisis. Therefore, this school has been working in trimesters and has integrated Google Classroom as the main way to get all educational resources to their students. Taking into account the Ministry of Health's guidelines, there has to be no more than 16 students inside a classroom. Hence, the school has divided the grades into two groups, online and offline. Offline students have to go to classes in the morning and online students have to go to classes through Zoom in the afternoon. These two groups ought to have the same lessons as they are or as similar as they can be, so as to not limit the students' learning opportunities. The 7th grade class I based this proposal on is composed of 20 students, with an average age of 12 years. 11 students are female, 9 are male, and 14 students go to offline lessons, with the other 6 going to online lessons. During the offline and online classes, the students remain quiet when the teacher is giving instructions. But in offline classes, there are 2 to 3 students that disrupt the class by yelling or talking loudly during exercises. In an interview with the English teacher, he revealed that there are students with lower proficiency levels than the rest of the class because they have been exempt from the English class in previous years. Lastly, the English teacher also said that the students' level of English lies between B1 and B2 of the CEFR. So, the questions set to guide this action research are: how can differentiated instruction increase participation in class? And how can the increase in participation help with the students' English production in order to enhance their learning experience? With that said, let's dive deeper into what the theoretical framework is about. Firstly, we need to talk about Vygotsky's zone of proximal development theory. In short, this concept talks about how language learners and their teachers have and should be knowledgeable of their current level of English proficiency, what they're able to do with the help of someone more capable, and what is impossible for them to do yet. Here, we can see a diagram which illustrates this concept perfectly. Another concept to take into account is Krashen's input hypothesis as a key insight into the I+1 hypothesis. Krashen states that people learn language by understanding messages or receiving comprehensible input which contains structures at our next stage. This idea will be considered, but as we will see next, input is not the sole aspect of language in which we will focus on. Interaction between students and their peers and with their teacher can translate into participation during class. That is why it can be proposed that students in class interventions play a major role in their learning outcomes. The output hypothesis proposes that second language acquisition is more likely to happen when the learner produces a spoken or written text rather than just exposure to input. In order to produce language, they have a set of options in which they can ignore the gap in their knowledge, find how to produce language within their own knowledge of the target language, and to understand the gap in knowledge and pay attention to relevant inputs. Therefore, we can suggest that by making students more aware of their gap in their knowledge and by designing lessons around comprehensible output, they will become more eager to produce in their L2. To explain differentiation, I will use Tomlinson's book How to Differentiate Instruction in a Mixed Ability Classroom, which gives insight into what differentiated instruction is. So the key aspects in which I will focus on are readiness, interest, and learning profile. As Tomlinson defines, students learn better if tasks are a close match for their skills and understanding of a topic, readiness, if tasks ignite curiosity or passion in a student, which is interest, and if the assignment encourages students to work in a preferred manner, learning profile. So readiness seems to be related to Vygotsky's idea of CPD, and interest seems to be related to the engagement the students have while learning. According to Tomlinson, a student's choice creates a sense of empowerment that improves their learning experience. Lastly, learning profiles refers to the preferred way of learning that students have, which is affected by intelligence preference, gender, culture, and learning styles. However, even though this last concept will be taken into account, it will not play a significant role, as research about learning styles has been discredited by recent reviews of that theory. Okay, so now we get to the action plan. The general objective of this proposal is to increase all the students' participation in class, thus creating better learning outcomes by the end of the intervention. Plus, as a specific objective, it is expected that by the end of the unit, the students will be able to successfully design an exposition about their favorite art form and be able to communicate their ideas successfully. For this proposal, readiness will be defined as the student's ability to produce past simple structures, and for this, they will have to answer a diagnostics test regarding this topic. Their learning profile will be defined by an item in the same diagnostics test, in which students will have to talk about their preferred type of intelligence. Lastly, interest will be determined through an analysis of the students' answers to a graded evaluation done in May of 2021, in which they had to do a fill the gaps exercise related to their interest, the results of which can be seen on screen right now. Now, due to the sanitary crisis, students engage in 1-hour lessons once per week during this school year. So this intervention will consist of 5 consecutive lessons while tackling the last unit of art forms and past simple structures. Throughout the explanation of this lesson sequence for this action plan, a Gantt chart is going to be projected so you can follow along. The first lesson will focus on checking the students' readiness regarding past simple structures, and to apply Vygotsky's idea of CPD, readiness will be defined as the distance between the student's level of understanding of past simple structures at the start and at the end of the intervention. To check this, a diagnostic test will be given to them on classroom to answer during the class. If by any chance the students are not able to complete it during the class, they will have the rest of the week to do so. The main goal of this task is to shape the following lessons with the data gathered. By checking all of this, lesson 2 will be centered around the strengths and weaknesses that the students present. The main skill developed during the lesson 2 will be reading, in which a reading task will be given to the students to present new vocabulary, all leading towards the final presentation. Regarding differentiation, each student will have the chance to pick their handout according to their own perceived level. This decision is backed by Tomlinson, where the author states that students' choice and the balance teachers and students make while making arrangements about in-class work should be in line with their own learner profile. The third lesson would be developed according to the students' answers to the evaluation from May, with the skill to focus on being listening. This was chosen to show the students' communication during authentic context. Since listening may be too demanding for students in 7th grade, the listening would be given in chunks and with questions to check for comprehension along the way. After this lesson, students will be notified about the last assessment and how it will play out, and that they will need to gather information about the preferred art form for next week. In lesson number 4, students will need to create a script for the final presentation using a template with the information about their favorite art forms, using vocabulary and past simple structures. The template will be divided into three categories: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Students will have to choose any of these templates with the help of the teacher if they find that better learning outcomes will come from lowering or raising their level. Plus, students will be told that they need to bring a way of presenting their script, such as images, a PPT presentation, a sculpture, a video, anything that can help them showcase their favorite art form. Lastly, lesson 5 will consist of a speaking activity based on the script made the previous class, which will be a summative assessment. The teacher and the students will assess the performing student during this activity. This exercise will work as a type of art gallery where the students will place their work and present their script in front of their peers. This last assessment will give the students freedom to explore their interests and use their imagination to create and present something they can be proud of. In order to assess the effectiveness of this proposal, there will be two instruments to systematize the effects of the intervention throughout the lessons: the diagnostic test to check the students' learning outcomes and compare those results to the start of the intervention, and a chart to track the progress of all students' participation each lesson. Plus, observations will be kept in a journal to write comments about moments that some students create during class. Some of the comments expected to be written could be the amount of times the students participated, if the students talk more than expected during the lesson, etc. And finally, we have reached the conclusion. This proposal aims to create a safe environment for all students to be comfortable and willing to participate in classroom activities. It often goes overlooked or unnoticed how some simple changes a teacher makes can affect the performance, attitude, or feelings of a student. In retrospect, other factors could have affected the levels of participation the students have, and a different perspective can make this action research more meaningful. As a teacher, language production is one of the most important outcomes that we expect from students. However, language production is not the same as participation in class. Language production does not play a significant role in this research. However, there must be a way in which I can balance English production and participation in order for the students to make meaningful contribution to the class and their learning process, as well as reaching learning objectives. This actual research changed the way I viewed differentiating instruction, and even though I strive to create a safe environment for all students for making mistakes and giving and receiving feedback, it is difficult to comprehend that one size does not fit all. Teachers must adapt their lessons to all sorts of these situations and learners. Even though I was not able to implement this research proposal, it will be used for future reference to guide my journey as an EFL teacher. I will definitely consider these ideas for the future if I ever encounter a similar situation. And maybe classrooms start looking a bit like this. Yes, very good. Yes, thank you. Yeah, you. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, you're correct. Yes, okay, very good.